Recognizes the gentleman from Massachusetts, Mr. Capuano, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank the panel for their testimony. I got to be honest, this stuff for me, I kind of always feel like I'm up to my nose in it because it's tough stuff. It might be easy for all you guys. You're all a lot smarter than I am. I've spent most of the week trying to figure out how many points I can get out of Ed Perlmutter for the Patriots-Broncos game. That's about as complex as I can get. And it's kind of interesting when I hear the complaints about a complex rule, it presumes that CDOs and CLOs and CDO TRUPs and CDO squares are simple. They're some of the most complicated financial instruments in the history of mankind, and you expect simple rules to kind of keep them in check. I don't get it. You have a complicated, difficult, always advancing, always changing financial services market. You're going to have complex rules to try to catch up. Never get ahead, but just to catch up. And honestly, it would help me a lot if anybody ever came to talk to me about a complex rule who didn't always come to me to complain about any rule. I would love to be here at a panel with people who are subject to regulations who told me that's a fair and reasonable regulation. Never heard that in 14 years I've been here. So I kind of start off with difficult stuff to comprehend. Mr. Robinson, your $1 trillion number, it's a big number, scary number. But I have some other numbers. GAO says that the financial crisis wiped out $9 trillion of assets. GAO says that it reduced economic output by $12 trillion. The top that we passed was just short of $1 trillion. The Federal Reserve increased its balance sheet by $1.5 trillion. All total, that's $23.2 trillion that were either lost or put on the line because we didn't have sufficient regulations at the time. Now, I don't know about anybody else. My concern is that we have adequate regulations going forward. I totally agree, and I've been saying from day one, this regulation and all regulation, I know that the other side likes to pretend that we're all for overregulation. That's my platform. I'm here to kill business because I hate jobs. That's ridiculous. We're looking for a balanced regulation, and not for the normal players, but to try to somehow cow the outliers. Now, whether this particular regulation hits the mark or not, we'll tell over time, and if it doesn't, we'll amend it, like it has already been amended even before it's implemented. Mr. Benson, you pointed out some very interesting comments that might be of concern to me as I check them out. And if they work out, if I agree with, which I tend to on the face, I'll try to help you address those. Those are fair points. But for me, it's really only about one thing. As I see it, the whole crisis was caused because they had the financial institutions, the biggest ones, taking risk that they had insufficient capital reserves to cover. That's the bottom line. I don't care that somebody's gambling their own money, and if they lose it, but when they do it in a way that then puts my mother's pension at risk, that's a problem, and we have to do something about it. So yes, is it any surprise? Is it wrong that we're asking some of the people who are making some of the riskiest bets to increase their capital reserve? Now, whether $1 trillion is the right number, that's a fair question. Mr. Robinson, do you think that we should actually ask anyone to have any capital reserve ever?
Absolutely.
So now the question is how much?
Exactly.
And that's a fair question. Is $1 trillion too much? Maybe. What's the right number? $500 billion? 700 million? I don't know. But that's what we're here for, to try to get it right. The one thing I know, without question, without doubt, without debate, is that it was insufficient in 2008. Does anyone disagree with that? You think that we had sufficient capital requirements in 2008? Because if you do, please raise your hands because I'd like to hear more. So we all agree that they were insufficient and we have to increase them. How much? Anybody here have the answer? Because if you do, I want to hear it. I'm not sure.
Well, Congressman, I think they should be increased by much more than currently proposed. Andrew Haldane of the Bank of England recently said that the way to think about capital on a global basis in the largest financial institutions is that they were capital requirements on a leverage basis were between 1% and 2%. So you could be 98% leverage, 98% debt or more. Now, under this Basel III agreement, as applied in the United States, will get slightly over 3% capital requirement, so you can be nearly 97% debt. I don't think that's enough to withstand the kinds of risks that you're identifying.
So I should continue being nervous, which I guess I am.
Time of the gentleman has expired. The chair now recognizes